Lisa Michaels, and we're here at the Jefferson County Fair, and we are going to be walking in the Jefferson County Parade today for James Buchal, candidate for Attorney General of Oregon. Wonderful guy.
This is Teresa, and this is Camille.
We're decorating the car for the parade. Jefferson County Fair Parade 2012. We are decorating the car for James Buchal, running for Attorney General for the state of Oregon. Go Republicans!
And I'm helping to put on this parade and get these Republicans elected. Republican Party, we have 12.
And you're all dressed
12 different groups of walkers and vehicles and a marvelous old fire truck.
We're driving this fire truck, the parade with the signs on here for the Republican Party. Got to defeat Barack Obama.
That's right.
This is my mother, Jeanette Lambert. And, she's going to be riding in the car. She's 93.
Why are we here?
Yes.
To make everybody vote Republican. We need to get that fellow that we call president out.
to save our country. That's it.
I'm excited to be in Madras and get an incredible reception here. Folks really care about informing tours, they care about the state lands, they care about the race for treasure, and they also care about James Buchal, who's an amazing Attorney General for us. And Newt Bueller for Secretary of State, and Bruce Starr is getting a really good reception here. He's running for Labor Commissioner, so wow.
I think we need to downsize government just like the federal government needs to do. Make the government more responsible, quit wasting money.
Perfect. Those are my campaign themes. Decentralization, simplification, and accountability. It's not even a Democrat-Republican thing. It's a good government thing.
Exactly.
Exactly. You have to fight when agencies want to spread their authority too far and claim authority they haven't got. You got to shut them down instead of backing them up. And when the federal government oversteps its boundaries, the states got to stand up to it. Like those states that sued on Obamacare. There's been 50 states, not just 20-something.
Absolutely.
It's a granite beat.
I was just sort of sitting peacefully in my office until Lisa called, and then I got hauled down to Alvin Alley's office. But this is time to get serious. I've litigated my whole life against the federal government and the state government, and I have never seen us being closer to a total collapse of the rule of law than we are now. I have never seen so many cases where I walk into these courts and I see judges who don't even know what a constitution is. You know, back in May, I give you one example. Just you all don't really have an idea how bad it is. And part of what I'm here to tell you is I'm very energized because this is it. This November is it. If we don't pull this off this November, that's kind of the end of this country as we know it.
Yep.
You think that because we still have judges and we still have courts, that we still have a rule of law. But our institutions are no better than the people we got in them. And the people we got in them are dead rotten. Back in May, I was arguing a case in front of the Supreme Court of Washington. Simple case. A 6-year-old could do it. The Constitution of Washington says, if you're going to collect gasoline taxes, you spend them on highways or with tax refunds. So I fight this case. They get run out of money like governments do. They say, let's take the gas taxes and pay the park employees with it. I get hired to go fight this, go to the courts, lose 2-1 in the Court of Appeals. Oh yeah, paying the parks employees is really a tax refund because, gosh, you know, if we pay the parks employees, like people go to the parks and then they get a benefit from it, and because I get a benefit from it, that's like conferring something on them, so that's like a refund. It's just the same. Then I'm in front of the Supreme Court, 9 justices of the Supreme Court, same thing. So what is wrong with these people? What's wrong with these people is they're like pod people from the planet government. And they're from a culture that for so long has just had the view that whatever a government attorney says about the Constitution or about a law, that's what we're going to do. And that is dead wrong. We know now we are one Supreme Court justice away from losing the Second Amendment, if we haven't lost it already. What happened with Obamacare? I mean, any fool can tell that the federal government is not allowed to reach down and say, we're going to tax you $100 if you don't eat your broccoli. But that's what Justice Roberts thought. So these are very serious times indeed. Our future is already screwed in a fundamental way. The federal government has bankrupted this country. They're now spending 40 cents out of every dollar they spend is borrowed. They've accumulated $5 trillion in the past couple of years. This country is flat, dead broke. It's like a Ponzi scheme. We now have the Fed out there buying all this government debt and printing money. We have the inflation starting to go up in the early stages of what could be Zimbabwe. It is likely that within the next few years, we are going to lose very significant parts of our wealth. And we have a choice then. We have a choice that will decide our destiny as a nation. And there's two directions we can go. We can go back toward the direction of the Constitution, or we can go toward what every other democracy in history has turned into, which is a dictatorship. And that's the choice we're making this November. It's a very important choice. So what can we offer people to give them some hope about this? We can offer them three ideas. My first idea that I'd like to push is decentralization. We have cancer now. The government has cancer. Cancer is when your cells start to grow wild and uncontrolled. Now, I don't know, I'm not Dr. Buchal, I don't know what causes cancer in people, but I know what causes it in governments, and that's a total failure to live by the Constitution. The Constitution is what keeps us from getting cancer. It's what keeps the government in check. And by trashing the Constitution one piece at a time, the 9th Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the 4th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, the 6th Amendment, the 2nd Amendment, by throwing it all in the toilet, we get government cancer. And when we have government cancer, we see things like, oh, we have forests in Oregon. Well, let's just let them burn down and burn up $10 billion worth of timber because, gosh, you know, we can't fight fires in wilderness areas using bulldozers or chainsaws because that would interfere with the wilderness character of the area, and so forth and so on. We have people who are like, oh, you've had a water supply in Portland for 150 years, but we think you need to double everybody's water prices so we can put plastic on top of it because we're afraid about that. I mean, we have the federal government now with this Obamacare, you know, let's drive all the doctors out of business. Let's make sure no one ever wants to be a doctor again by sticking them in some Stalinist-style bureaucracy, and then we'll all have better health care. These people are nuts. These people are not living in the reality-based community. We are. That's what we have going for us. We live in the real world. And in the real world, we can sell decentralization because even a Democrat, if they're not employed by the government, can recognize that we don't need 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 layers of government all doing the same thing. Because when they all do the same thing, then they all spend their time fighting with each other. You know, I spent 10 years litigating about salmon and dams. On the wall of my office, I've got 40,000 pages of documents with these reports, 6 inches thick, with this plan, and then this agency commenting on that plan, and that agency commenting on that plan. Billions and billions of dollars, and all we get is paper because we have over-centralized government fighting with all the other layers. Principle. Simplification. Everybody knows that everything is too complicated. You can't do anything to dig up 1 spade of earth in Oregon or take a gallon of water or do anything without 15 different kinds of permits. And then you got to hire 15 or 20 experts to say, well, let's do a survey. Is there Indian artifacts here? Or let's do this or let's do that. We spend $20, $30, $40, $50,000 on things like cutting down an acre of trees. It's absurd. Oregon, I happen to know, since I represent a lot of gold miners, is full of gold, okay? But we now have regulators who say, you can't dig a little hole in the stream to get the gold out. There are common trout in that stream. And we have a mandate to protect trout. So if there is 1 chance in a million that you'll dig into a trout egg, you can't dig at all, except maybe during these 2 weeks in August when the moon is blue or something like that. And there is no sense of proportionality, no sense of common sense. It's all about significance. We have these regulators now who have infinite powers, infinite money, and if they can measure it, it must be wrong. And so if you can measure a particle down to 1 part in a trillion, well then the safety standard must be 1 part in a trillion. And this has gone on and on and on. 2,700-page acts, 50,000 pages of regulations. I tell you something you may not know. There's a statute in Oregon that says that the agency rules all have to be clear and simple. It's right there at the bottom of ORS 183. It's never been enforced, to my knowledge. Can you imagine how radical it would be if an attorney general came to some state agency that just came out with one of these rules like this and said, I'm sorry, that rule violates the law that says it has to be simple and clear. I'm not going to help you enforce it. Now, I know that that would make me unpopular. I know that that would make the agencies go run to the press and say this attorney general is a lunatic. He won't enforce the law. But we have to have a radical approach to rein this stuff in because we are dying from the cancer that is throwing the sand in the gears of our economic recovery. We have to sell better government that is also a smaller and more efficient government. Last but not least, accountability. We all know that in this state, we have this sort of brain-dead reactionary Stalinist liberal Democratic elite that runs everything. They want light rail, they get light rail. They want this, they want that. Millions and millions of dollars run through the coffers of these people and their friends, and very often we have nothing to show for it at all. How many people here remember the DMV computerization exercise? Tens or hundreds. You remember it. How much was the total that they spent?
$88 million.
$88 million, and at the end of it, what do they have? A pile of computers in the basement that won't run. Did anybody lose their job? Did anybody? No, nobody's held accountable. Up in Portland, I see this stuff even more. You know, let's go computerize the Water Bureau. $60 million later, we've got nothing. How about the newest example? We got a plan for a bridge across the Columbia River. $300 million of planning. And at the end of it, we've got a bridge that's the smallest bridge anywhere, and so it won't work for any kind of port traffic. So we have to start all over again. Now, there are two possibilities here. One, these people are just staggeringly incompetent, right? But the other possibility is that maybe there's something going on that an attorney general should investigate. Maybe there's something going on that's corrupt. Maybe some of these $300 million went to people who did absolutely nothing. But nobody investigates. Nobody's ever held accountable. And so maybe you can go out to some of your Democrat friends, and I know there's some even out here, and tell them, maybe we ought to elect a Republican to keep those Democrats honest. You know, I don't get to write the laws. I get to interpret them, but all I do is enforce them. Maybe for a change, we should have someone enforce them and have accountability. And this is an issue that is a real undercurrent of outrage among everybody. Not so much in Oregon. Now, Mr. Starr is right that things aren't quite so bad in Oregon. But on a national level, when people see things happen like these big banks go out and play in the quadrillion-dollar derivative casinos and make the wrong bet, and all of a sudden, oh, we lost $1 trillion. That's okay, put it on the taxpayer's tab. And no one is held accountable. There is an undercurrent of rage in this country about the lack of accountability. And it's important to tell people you have to elect people who are willing to say what's going on and who are willing to hold people accountable. I'm willing to do that. I don't care if I get reelected. I don't care if I get impeached. I can go back to my law practice and do what I do and make more money. So hey, but while I'm there, I will raise hell and I will cause trouble. And you will read about me as the worst attorney general ever in the newspapers, which will mean I am doing the best job for these things. So